Jon Gruden gone as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Resigning last night after years of emails laced with racist, misogynistic, and homophobic comments.
Gruden denounces the drafting of a gay player and calls for the firing of players who protest the national anthem.
He deserves to be shamed, and that's exactly what has happened to him.
There's a lot of people that might have dirt that don't want their dirt dug up.
He frequently used misogynistic and anti-gay language in numerous emails before he was hired as coach of the Raiders.
I love the Raiders and do not want to be a distraction. Thank you to all the players, coaches, staff, and fans of Raider Nation. I'm sorry, I never meant to hurt anyone.
With everything that has been going on in regards to the now former Raiders head coach, Jon Gruden, I felt like now would be an appropriate time to tell you the incredibly sketchy story behind Jon Gruden's only Super Bowl victory. Because this particular Super Bowl, almost 20 years ago, is considered by many people across the league to be a rigged Super Bowl. In fact, less than 24 hours before the biggest game in the world, one of the most important starters, a key player in the football game, the center, went missing. So what's going on, guys? Your boy Mike here, and today we're going to be discussing Super Bowl 37, the only Super Bowl that Jon Gruden has ever won in his career. Despite this, Jon Gruden has actually been recently removed from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Ring of Honor. And if you think that's controversial, wait until you hear about how he won this Super Bowl. Really quick before we get to the content, do me a favor and sack the like button for the YouTube algorithm. This video is probably going to get demonetized due to the fact that Jon Gruden is practically being scrubbed from the internet right now, so leaving a like goes a long way to make sure my channel remains in good standing. And now that we get all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. Super Bowl 37 was also nicknamed the Pirate Bowl or the Gruden Bowl, which was held on January 26, 2003. The Oakland Raiders were tasked with attempting to defeat their old head coach Jon Gruden, who had served in that capacity from 1998 to 2001. However, as a result of a trade, Jon Gruden became the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' new head coach and had propelled the Buccaneers to the big game after a 12-4 regular season record in his first year as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach. The Oakland Raiders head coach was the offensive coordinator under Jon Gruden in Oakland from 1998 to 2001. To draw a good parallel for you in regards to the perception of Jon Gruden during that time in the NFL, think of Sean McVay in the terms that Jon Gruden was young, charismatic, and his offenses have always been remarkable. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it was a way to erase the lovable losers title from next to their name and replace it with world champions. Although Gruden was known for prolific offenses, Tampa Bay's scoring attack wasn't spectacular in Gruden's first year. The team became winners mostly thanks to the defense built around the likes of Warren Sapp, Derrick Brooks, Rondé Barber, and John Lynch. Tampa Bay became the first team to lead the league in total defense, points allowed, and interceptions since the Chicago Bears did it in 1985. Opposing quarterbacks against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense were held to a 49.4 passer rating, and during that regular season, they picked off those signal callers 31 total times and then 9 times in the NFL playoffs. By holding the San Francisco 49ers to 6 points in the divisional playoffs and only allowing the Philadelphia Eagles a mere 10 points in the NFC Championship, Jon Gruden found himself in the Super Bowl with the task of beating his old team. As for Bill Callahan, in his first season with full control of the Oakland Raiders, it began as a 4-4 start. But with that season's NFL MVP Rich Gannon at quarterback, paired with receivers Tim Brown and Jerry Rice, Oakland won 7 out of its 8 final games, finishing with a 11-5 record to top the AFC West division. Against the New York Jets, the Raiders cruised to a 30-10 divisional playoff victory behind Rich Gannon's 283 yards and 2 touchdowns, and in the AFC Championship, they were met with another veteran team, the Tennessee Titans, as only 4 starters on both of those squads were rookies. With only 31 seconds left in the third quarter, the Titans only trailed by 3 points, 27-24, but Rich Gannon carved up Tennessee's defense to score with 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter and scored again while milking all 6+ minutes that remained in the game, winning 41-24. It is now 2 days before the Super Bowl in January of 2003. It was after 10 p.m. on Friday, January 24th, and the Raiders starting center Barrett Robbins was dropped off at La Jolla Hyatt Hotel right in time to make the 11 p.m. team curfew. His wife Marissa remained in the car as she would be taken to a different hotel where the players' families were staying. The next morning, Marissa Robbins received a call from a member of the Oakland Raiders staff.
Phone rings in the morning. You know, anytime the phone rings, not normal hours before 8 o'clock, it's not good. And it was Bruce Allen calling me.
Bruce Allen, the Raiders executive.
Yes.
Bruce Allen, who called her and said, "Where's our guy?" The staffer went on to explain that her husband was in his room at bed check that Friday night, but had not attended the Saturday morning team meeting, and no one had heard from him either. She was not completely shocked that her husband was unaccounted for, as he had struggled with mental illness for years. While Barrett was at TCU, he had been diagnosed with depression, and during his second season with the Raiders, team personnel had found him wandering around the team hotel in Denver, confused and out of it. It was Saturday night, and Pro Bowler Barrett Robbins arrived back at the team hotel. Team executive Bruce Allen recalled that when Robbins finally showed back up, he was very disoriented and had even mumbled something about winning the Super Bowl. He had told me that he was so excited that we had won the game, and he asked to catch a plane for the Pro Bowl in Honolulu the next morning. Raiders head coach Callahan had already taken Robbins off of the roster once he returned, and immediately banned him from the team hotel. Then, on the morning of the Super Bowl, instead of going through the pregame routine with his team, he was watching television with his wife and their 2 young daughters. His wife then reminded him it was Sunday and asked if he knew where he was supposed to be. Barrett Robbins then answered, "Church?" Thus, just 2 hours before the kickoff of the Super Bowl, he was admitted to a hospital in San Diego, where he remained for several days before going through rehab at the Betty Ford Clinic. His agent released a statement where Robbins apologized for his actions and said he had been diagnosed as bipolar. Robbins later opened up to his wife in various interviews down the road, saying that he was left late that Friday night before the Super Bowl, and he then proceeded to spend the night most of the next day in San Diego and even in Tijuana, Mexico, just across the border, partying and engaging with prostitutes because he thought the Raiders had already won the Super Bowl. A Raiders alumni had found him and put him in a car back to the hotel late that evening after he had already participated in hours of debauchery. Even though he had a history of mental illness, many believe it may have had to do with his head coach triggering him and that Callahan's actions were to blame. On just the Friday before the Super Bowl, Bill Callahan had changed the game plan from a run-oriented scheme to a pass-heavy attack. It crushed Robbins, who thrived in blocking for the run scheme, who had to change line calls and blocking methods with virtually no notice right before the biggest game of his entire career. Barrett told a Dallas radio station that "I was going through a manic episode that lasted more than 2 weeks. When we went to the Super Bowl, I was going through acupuncture, going through a lot of pain. Pain is a big trigger when it comes to bipolar, and that was something I was going through, as well as self-medicating." With their game plan changed and the fact that Jon Gruden knew the Oakland Raiders offense, especially the passing scheme, like the back of his hand, a blowout ensued. Bucs defensive back John Lynch even told his teammates during the game that most of the plays were the ones that Gruden had told them to look out for. Also, the Raiders' audible calling signals, those that Jon Gruden created, had not been changed at all. Early in the first quarter, the Raiders had an interception against Buccaneers quarterback Brad Johnson. However, as they attempted to drive, Simeon Rice sacked Rich Gannon and Oakland was forced to kick a field goal. The Buccaneers then tied the game 3-all, and late in the first quarter on third down, Tampa Bay's Dexter Jackson picked off a Rich Gannon pass and returned it to near near midfield. 9 plays later, the Buccaneers converted another field goal and the score read 6-3. Bucks would then pull ahead 20-3 at the half, then points were added with a pair of touchdowns via a 2-yard run from the fullback Mike Allslott and a 77-yard drive that ended in a 5-yard pass to Keelan McCardell. Later, Dwight Smith intercepted Gannon and returned it for a 50-yard touchdown, and Tampa Bay would win their first Super Bowl with a 48-21 victory, meaning Tampa Bay's radio announcer declared, "The dagger is in it. We're going to win it all." Tampa Bay had forced 5 turnovers in the game, all of which being Rich Gannon interceptions, 3 that had been pick sixes, and the Buccaneers had outrushed the Raiders 150 yards to 19. After the loss, at least one player put the blame on Robbins. Offensive lineman Frank Middleton said, "If Barrett Robbins comes back next season, I won't." 10 years later, in 2013, 2 of the Raiders' most notable wide receivers of all time suggested in a very public manner that Oakland's head coach intentionally harmed the Oakland Raiders' chance of winning that Super Bowl. First, Tim Brown, the 9-time Pro Bowler who played for the Oakland Raiders, made some controversial comments on Sirius XM NFL radio that Bill Callahan sabotaged the game. He said that the loss was due to Callahan scrapping the run-heavy attack that was designed to give the Oakland Raiders the advantage on the line in lieu of a scheme that called for throwing the ball more than 60 times. Brown said, "We all called it sabotage because Callahan and Jon Gruden were good friends, and Callahan had a big problem with the Raiders. He hated the Raiders. He only came because Jon Gruden made him come. He literally walked off the field on us a couple of times during the season when he first got there." 4 years prior to that, Brown told ESPN Dallas when asked if the Super Bowl was really rigged by Callahan, saying, "Can you really say that? That can be my opinion, but I can't say for a fact that's what his plan was, to sabotage the Super Bowl. The facts are what they are. That less than 36 hours before the game, we changed our game plan, and we go into that game absolutely knowing that we have no shot, that the only shot we had if Tampa Bay didn't show up." Jerry Rice agreed with his fellow pass catcher's comments on the sketchiness of that Super Bowl loss. Rice, in a call-in appearance on NFL Live in 2013, said that, "I was very surprised that he waited till the last second, and I think a lot of the players were surprised as well. So in a way, maybe because he didn't like the Raiders, Callahan decided, hey look, maybe we should sabotage just a little bit and let Jon Gruden go out and win this one. After all, I'm only here because of Jon Gruden to begin with." As for the former Raiders running back Charlie Garner, he was quoted saying in an interview with 97.5 The Fanatic, "There may be something to what Mr. Brown has been saying. I really don't know the validity of which Callahan despised the Raiders, but I also know that he didn't want to be there as well." John Ritchie, the Raiders' starting fullback in Super Bowl 37, texted Chris Mortensen agreeing with Brown's thoughts. Ritchie wrote, "I've said it for years. What we practice heavily during the week is not what we ran in that game. It could have been due to Barrett's absence. It was never explained to me." As for Bill Callahan, he wrote in a statement defending himself after the blasting from his former players, saying, "While I fully understand a competitive professional football player's disappointment when a game's outcome doesn't go his team's way, I am shocked, saddened, and outraged by Tim Brown's allegations and Jerry Rice's support of those allegations over the last 24 hours. Callahan said, "To leave no doubt, I categorically and unequivocally deny the sum and substance of their allegations." As for Robbins, in a 2012 interview on HBO Real Sports, he said, "I get depressed on Super Bowl Sunday. It's hard for me to watch." On Christmas Eve in 2004, he punched a security guard in a hotel that resulted in him being arrested for battery, trespassing, and public intoxication. In January of 2005, he was shot 3 times in the chest by police during a brawl in Miami Beach and was subsequently charged with attempted murder. Since 2004, he has been in and out of jail and/or rehab, often in a disappearing and reappearing cycle. He was divorced from his wife, but apparently has a good relationship with his daughters. As for present day, he is here and there, and Tim Brown says that his name will come up when people ask him about that Super Bowl. Brown says of Robbins, "A lot of guys thought what Barrett did was unforgivable at the time, but as the years pass, you come to realize that he had serious issues, that not everything was under his control. Everyone knew Barrett was unstable even then, but I think now everybody has a much better understanding of the things he was dealing with. I wish him the best. I haven't talked to him in a long time. He's kind of been a ghost. The latest on Barrett Robbins as of 2020 was at 47 years old. He was in Miami and had been arrested 3 times in that 1 month alone. Also, the police oftentimes find the former NFL star sleeping outside of a convenience store. Bill Callahan served as the Raiders head coach for that lone season and was fired just days after that Super Bowl loss. He then spent 4 seasons at the University of Nebraska as their head coach before jumping back in the NFL with various coordinator roles and is now the offensive line coach for the Cleveland Browns. As for Jon Gruden, well, we already know about his fate. He recently had his name removed from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Ring of Honor for some recent emails that they dug up on him.